everybody, happy art day. This is Miss Moynihan and Aislinn, and today we are going to be showing you guys how to do weavings at your house. So we actually made our loom out of a piece of cardboard and then used some random strings and things that we found around the house to do weavings with. So this is my finished one, and I'll show you a close-up picture of this at the end of the video. And Aislinn's in the middle of working on hers right now, so we'll be back in a little bit to show you what hers ends up being. But what's your plan for yours, Aislinn?
I'm gonna keep going with my pattern where I'm gonna do gray and then the fuzzy blue and then the cotton. And right now, I'm trying to do the cotton still, and then I'm gonna repeat until I finish.
And what has been a little bit tricky for you? What has been a little challenging? What are some of the things that you think you should tell our friends?
If you use a fuzzy one, it can be harder to see, and you can accidentally skip some, like I did with this one.
But in the end, does it really matter if you skip? Because a lot of times the yarn or whatever you're using will kind of cover up any mistakes that you made. So she's gonna keep working on that, and we'll be back in a little bit to end our video with you. Okay, so to start weaving, I created a loom using a piece of cardboard, and you can use any piece of cardboard laying around. I actually created mine using a Pop-Tarts box. And to begin, I cut down the box into a rectangle shape. You can do a square, you can even do a circle. And then on each side, the opposite sides, I measured 1/2 inch and created a line every 1/2 inch. And then I cut a slit into each of those lines. That is how I'm going to create my warp. So the warp is the vertical lines of yarn that will go up and down my loom. So to do that, I'm just going to take my yarn and I'm going to stick it in the top here. And then I'm going to do the same thing down at the bottom. Okay. And then when I flip it over, I'm going to tie these two pieces together just using a double knot. You could also just tape it down, that might be a little bit faster, but I'm just gonna tie it. Okay, and then I'm going to continue wrapping my yarn around the front, back, front, back. And I'm gonna keep doing that until I have my warp created across my entire loom. And I'm not pulling super tight, but I'm definitely making it tight enough where it's not gonna be moving all around on me. All right, I'm just gonna flip it around here because I need to pull a little bit more yarn off of here. All right, when I'm done, and I get to my last little slot that I created, I'm just gonna flip it back over. I'm going to trim my yarn, and I'm gonna just tie a knot to keep that yarn in place. Again, you could tape it or tie it, either way will work, as long as it's not gonna slide out of place while you're trying to weave. And that's it. That is my warp. Now to create what is called the weft. And this is the part that you're gonna weave over, under, over, under, under, over, under, over. So you do the opposite, which I'll get to in a second. But I'm gonna use my other yarns and even scrap fabric. So when I went to look for yarn, I didn't end up having as much yarn as I thought I did laying around, but I was able to find some of this natural, it's kind of like twine. So I found some of that. I found some of this natural colored string, which I'm gonna use. I also found this fun eyelash yarn is what this is called, and so I'm gonna use some of that. And then I went through my fabrics, and I have a lot of scrap fabrics laying around, so I ended up just cutting some of that into strips, and I'm gonna end up weaving with these strips of fabric that I've cut. You could also even use like an old t-shirt that you're gonna throw away. You could cut that up. So if you don't have yarn laying around, you can find other things to weave with. So to create my weft, a lot of times they instruct you, or you will be instructed to use a needle to thread your yarn through a needle. I don't have a needle big enough, so again, in order to creatively problem solve that issue, I'm just gonna tape the end of my string to make it a little bit stronger, and that way it'll be easier to weave. So I'm just gonna add a little string, or sorry, a little tape to my string. And I'm gonna start, and if you want to make it a little bit easier for you, you can take an extra piece of cardboard and slide it under your warp and tilt it up just a little bit. If you do that, it just gives you a little more space to work with, so it's easier to weave in and out. So I'm gonna start by going under, over, under, over, under, over, and I'm gonna do that until I get to the end. I'm actually gonna pull this all the way through until I get to the end of my string here. I wanna be careful not to pull it too far because I don't wanna totally pull it out. So again, over, under. When I get to the end, I'm gonna push this down as far as it will go. And then I'm just gonna go back around through the other way. Since I ended with my weft going under my warp, and when I go back around, I'm gonna do the opposite. So I'm gonna start off going over, under, over, under, over, under. So I'm going to do that again till I get to the end, and I'm just gonna keep going until I run out of yarn. Now, when I go to pull this, I want it to be sort of tight, but I don't want it to be so tight that it's gonna pull my string in like this, because I don't wanna misshape my weaving. So I wanna make sure that this is all still nice and straight and that this is nice and secure. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to start off over, under, see how that's opposite? And again, I'm gonna pull it kind of tight, but not too tight. Sometimes you have to double check to make sure you're going the right way. All right. Okay, so now that I've reached the end, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna cut that taped section off because I don't really need that. And I'm going to leave this section right here because this is where I'm going to start with my next piece. Now with my next piece, maybe I will do something kind of crazy and I will start with my fabric. And I will just start right where I left off. So I kind of left off on the end there. So since I left off with going under, this time I'm going to go over. Oops. There we go, yes. Over, under. Might take a little getting used to. Okay, so now that I have finished my weaving, I went through with some gray, extra gray yarn, and I basically kind of tied knots all the way across the top here on each of my little strings that I used for my warp. So I'm gonna tie my last one here. Okay, I'm gonna cut this extra string off. And now what I'm gonna do, and I have to be careful because I forgot to do that at the very beginning, and it'll be okay. I'm not finishing this exactly the most proper way to finish a weaving, but I'm just gonna probably end up having to tape or sew the back of this. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to remove it from the loom. And to do that, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut this off of my loom. And then I just kind of pull. I want to be careful with this part over here because remember I did not tie that off very well earlier. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm actually going to tie a little knot right here using the gray yarn and then the beginning part of my weaving. So I'm going to tie a double knot. I might even do a triple knot just to make sure it's not going to slide anywhere. I know it's hard to see what I'm doing. Basically just tying knots because I don't want this to slide out. Okay. So there is that. And you can see this bottom part here. And what I really should have done was I should have tied knots into all of this to begin with. So I'm gonna have to just go back through and do that now to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So what I'm gonna do now is I have this really fun stick that Aislinn actually found outside for me. And I kind of want to attach my weaving to my stick. So I'm gonna carefully pull this off of the loom. So now my loom is gone and my weaving is right here. So that's what my final weaving looks like. And I might play around with the bottom part here. I might even put some like little fringe dangly things down there later on. But what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to tie each of these gray pieces of yarn onto the stick. And so my weaving will actually get to be displayed on my little stick here. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed up the video while I do that, and I'll show you the end result. Okay, here's Aislinn. She's cutting her weaving off of the loom. Okay, here she goes.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Mom, look at this.
You get it? Let's see it. Oh, it looks awesome. So next step, we are going to tie it onto your stick that you found. You like it?
Yeah.
Good. hope you enjoyed our weaving video. This is Aislin's finished weaving, and we're actually sitting in her bedroom right now. I think she might end up hanging it up in here for a decoration, so that's pretty cool. If you are interested in learning more about weaving, there are a ton of great videos on YouTube that you can check out, and other places on the interwebs for you to look. So you should definitely check it out. And if you want to do other art projects this week besides weaving, you should definitely head over to Cassie Stevens. Again, you guys already know, she's like my favorite art teacher. She is doing a Mad Scientist week all week, and so she's got some really cool things planned for that. So you should definitely check her out. As always, if you do try this project, you should definitely email me pictures. I've been loving seeing what you guys have been creating. It's been awesome. So definitely keep emailing me those pictures. All right, as always, tell them Happy Art Day.
Happy Art Day!